traveling and going different places with school being out, but thank you for being here, for being a part of what God is doing in the life of our church. We do definitely want to welcome you. This is your very first time. We had a little bit of an unusual day because we have a prospective pastor that's with us. We've been searching for some time for a pastor of students, and we believe that we have found the man that's going to serve and lead on behalf of our church. However, our church has a responsibility to affirm that call. Our personnel committee has thoroughly vetted that candidate, and that candidate's with us today. So I'm going to invite B.J. Hurst to come up here with his wife, Katie, if they can. So that you know what's going to happen, BJ is going to share just a brief testimony about what God's been doing in his life, how he came to know the Lord, also about his call and what he hopes to see through our student ministry. After that has taken place, you're going to have an opportunity, if you're a church member, to affirm that call. We had a vote in our first service, and we've got numbers tabulated for that. We'll quickly count that information up from this service, add it together, and right before I preach this morning, we should have an announcement about the vote. So we'll find out if church wants you, all right? No pressure, brother, all right? Give another warm welcome to BJ this year.
Hey, good morning, church. How are you?
Good. Awesome.
Good to see you here this morning. So this is my wife, Katie, and I'm BJ, as he just introduced. So just to get to know us a little bit, if you haven't already heard, we're both from Jacksonville, Florida. We grew up in Christian homes. We are very blessed with a Christian heritage. Both of our parents were Christians. Our grandparents were Christians. We were at church every time the doors were open. Sunday morning, Sunday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday. Every time we could be there, we were there. Which means we were presented with the gospel at an early age. Who God is, who we are in comparison to Him. My story is that when I was 12 years old, I was listening to a sermon, a Hellfire and Brimstone sermon that the pastor was preaching, and I became scared to death. I did not want to go to hell, so I cried the entire way home, and then my dad took me in a study and began to teach me about who God is. He told me what heaven, hell, sin, the gospel, who we are in relation to Christ, and I knelt there and I prayed, and nothing changed. So I went through middle school, I went through high school, and I was that guy who had the good morals. I was the Christian on the outside, did everything I was supposed to, but nothing on the inside had changed. And then freshman year of college came around, and I had a guy who was hounding me to go to an evangelism outreach, and eventually I just said I'll go so that he would stop and get him off my back. And so I went. We were passing out tracts, and eventually, after I hadn't said a word all night, he looked at me and said, "Okay, BJ, you have to talk now." He said, "You have to hand a tract to this lady and witness to her." So I handed her a tract. I said, "Ma'am, do you know for sure if you were to die tonight that you would go to heaven?" And she said, "I have no idea." So I said, "I can share with you how you can know 100% certain that you would go to heaven when you die. Do you mind if I share with you?" And she said, "Yes," and I froze. I had no idea what to say after that. So he took over, he began to witness to her, and I began to look up in the sky and ask, what in the world am I doing here? What do I believe? Who am I? What's my purpose here? Who is God? And what that did was it catalyzed me into a study and a search for what is truth. My parents have taught me all of these things, but what really, why am I here? What's the purpose of life? What's the purpose of this world? And so I went to all the different world religions. I went to Hinduism, Buddhism, Catholicism, Islam, Christianity, and I tried to not go as a biased Christian. I tried to go and just seek, what is this? What's going on here? And when I came to the end of the study, what I realized was I had an issue inside of me. My heart was fully tainted with sin, and the only solution to that was what Christ offered in His finished work on the cross, where He took my sin and He gave me His righteousness. So when I got through that study, and that just fueled my fire, man. That just put me in a place where I wanted to extol the name of Christ. I loved His glory. I could not get enough, an insatiable appetite to love Him, to know Him, to study Him, to learn more about Him. And what I wanted to do was I began to have these desires to serve the church. He began to show me where areas where I really liked to do things, where He had gifted me, places that He didn't gift me. So He began to open doors and close doors of ministry where I could use those gifts and grow them and learn how to best serve His church. Over the years, high school sweetheart. We started dating in 9th grade. We got married 5 years ago in November, and then we decided let's go to seminary. Let's learn, let's train our minds, let's train our hearts, let's get in a place where we can learn how to serve the church and be a blessing to the church. And so we graduated 2 weeks ago. We've been walking through the process here, and so what we're doing now is we're looking for the place where we can best serve the church, and that's what brings us here. And the concentration for that is pastor students. And there's 3 ways that we hope to serve the students and the youth of Ocala. And that's the 3 ways are: 1, we're looking for salvation. What we're doing is we're to be on mission for God, because the only way that He is glorified is through changed hearts by grace through faith. So we want God to be glorified through the salvation of souls of the youth and adults and families all over Ocala. But we don't just want God to be glorified in this box of black and white, check off a list, okay, we're doing what we're supposed to do. We want students and adults and families to enjoy who God is, that He is the greatest treasure in their life, that they've been worshiping money, drugs, sex, alcohol, all of these things, and now they're worshiping the one true God, and they're treasuring Him with everything that they have. So we want God to be glorified by salvation of hearts, by grace through faith. We want God we want students and adults and families to enjoy who God is. And then any age of a student, any age of a Christian, we don't want just people to be poured into for the sake of being poured into. We want them to be poured into for the purpose of pouring out. We want to create disciples who are growing more into the image of Christ, so that they can go and they can say, listen, I chased after this too, but look at this. This is so much better. And then they point them to Christ. So that it's not just we're glorifying God. It's not just that we are personally becoming more into the image of Christ and we're disciples of Christ. But we're disciples making disciples. And we're reaching the city of Ocala for this. So we're really excited. We hope it all works out in the boat, and can't wait to get to work. So.
All right. Amen.